the guitar. I lie, 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 lie. I lie, 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 lie. I lie, lie, I lie, lie. I lie, 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 lie. Diddy lie, 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 lie. I lie, 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 lie. Oh, I lie, lie. I lie, 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 lie. Ananai, ananai, I lie, 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 alalai, alalai. I lie, lie, I lie, lie, alalai, alalai. I lie, I alalai, alalai. I lie, 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 lie. I lie, 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 lie. I lie, lie. I was just checking the internet connection for people who are watching because it said slow internet. But that's the best I can do. Okay, so welcome to Aryeh, and welcome to everybody else who's watching, who I'm not able to see just yet because they're not showing up. And of course to my mother who watches every week, and to Shana Bat Sheva, and to Yael, and to Katie, and to Zahava, and everybody who watches and participates. Shalom Aleichem. And to the people that watch and don't leave me comments and I have no idea who they are. Shalom Aleichem as well. So lots to cover. First of all, we're going to have to do a review of the lesson, because it's only been, 2 weeks since we had a class, and would you have any idea what we were learning before? I didn't. I'd be clueless, no idea. So one thing before we start, here I see Katie is there and Zahava is there. Before we start, in Tishrei, when Simchat Torah is over, so Chabad has a minhag, has a custom, to announce at the end of davening, V'Yakov halach ladarko, and Yaakov went on his way. And they're not coming in here. And the meaning is that here you have all of these great holidays and this very high spiritual level, and the next day, boom, you're back into regular life, and you're like, what happened? It's like you fell off a cliff, and now you're laying there looking up and saying, I was up there before? And that's what it feels like when the holidays end. It's like just such a big blow. Pesach, I don't know what's going on with Pesach. This year, Pesach was so much work, so much money. It was unbelievable. And then it ended, and then it's all this work to put everything away, which took me basically all day to put stuff, clean stuff, put stuff away, pack things, get it in the storage space. Wow, what a crazy holiday. What a crazy religion. Really, it's amazing. Okay, so now we're back to learning, and in a sense we're now in Sfirat Omer, so that's we're now playing the guitar, we're getting ready for the receiving of the Torah and the holiday of Shavuot, and we're counting up in Sfirat Omer to the 49th day, and the 50th day is Shavuot, and we have this concept of that the Jews in Egypt reach the 49th level of Tumah, the 49th level of impurity, and there's many interpretations of it, but basically Egypt was the most materialistic, in our terms today, would be the most materialistic place in the world. It was really the place of the greatest idol worship in the whole world at the time. And so the Jews got very deeply involved in the idol worship and in intermarrying and in all kinds of things. And you get to the place of total despair. Total despair means, I don't care. It means that you were in some type of prison, and the guards open the gates and they say, go. And they're like, no, I don't want to go. That was the Jews in Egypt. That's the Jews, not all the Jews, that's the Jews in America as well. Next year, kosher for Pesach luxury resort. says Yael. Well, that you see how the motion light here catches you all the time. I don't think I would enjoy a resort very much. Maybe I just need a few more kids helping at home, although they were somewhat helpful. Problem is I lost all of my big helpers, Baruch Hashem. They moved out of the house. So we see in America also, I think there's more of an inspiration now, of Jews feeling more connected to Judaism, but especially if you see a Jew that doesn't keep Pesach and doesn't keep any holidays, doesn't have any connection whatsoever, that would be the equivalent of the 49th level of Tuma that the Jews in Egypt were reaching. Okay, just wanted to say that. Now we're going to go a very quick review of the lesson. So we're learning from lesson Chaf Daled, which is 24. And it starts off with the elders. This is the quote that Rabbi Nachman starts the lesson with. The elders of Athens, they asked Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, where is the center of the universe? He takes his finger and points it up, and he says it's right here. And they said, really? How do you know that? He said, why don't you take some ropes and measure it, and you'll see that it's the center of the universe. So obviously, that doesn't make any sense. It's some Kabbalistic concept that's being covered up with apparently logical statements. And then Rabbi Nachman is going to now go deeper into it. And I still haven't finished this lesson, so it's kind of a funny thing. I'm learning it with my chavruta. We are ahead of where we are. This is where we are with my chavruta. But he's been slowly kind of losing his memory. So he insisted that we jump to this lesson over here, and we started learning this lesson. And I'm like, well, what about that lesson over there? Oh, we'll get back to it. So I'm humoring him for now. We're over here. Then we'll come back. So I still haven't reached the end of the lesson. He starts off by saying, Da sheyesh or shehu lamala menafshin ve'uchin ve'nishmatin. There is a light that is an encompassing light that is higher than the soul, the spirit, and the life force of a person. Meaning, like if somebody says to you, prove to me that God exists, you say, so stop your heart from beating. I have total free will, I can do whatever I want, so stop your heart from beating. Of course, you can't do that. And so you wonder, okay, what is the force that's causing my heart to beat? It's this neshama. We have nefesh, ruach, and neshama, 3 different parts of the life force of the body. And we can experience it by just feeling our pulse and realizing that there is something making our body work that doesn't have anything to do with us. There is a life force that goes beyond that. That's the soul. And the soul is something eternal. The body is something finite. The soul is infinite. And so we're constantly connected to this infinite light, but we're not able to really perceive it. And he says, what is this encompassing light? Shehu O Ein Sof. This is the infinite light of Hashem. She'ein lanu bo shum hasaga. We don't have any concept of what this light is. Ki hu gavoa lamala me'olamot en ha'inyonim. Because it's higher than the 4 worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Ve'asiya. These are the 4 worlds. There are probably infinite worlds leading up to Hashem. So here we have this bottle. Let's see if I can fit it in here. Better make sure it's closed before I turn it upside down. So we look at this bottle as an analogy, and we say that this is, where will we? Atzilut, Bria, what comes next? Yetzira, and then Asiya. And see, it's going down lower and lower and lower. And what does that mean? That means that Hashem's presence is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, narrower and narrower and narrower, till it gets to this world, and you can say that it has like the most narrow entrance possible, where Hashem is so, Hashem's presence is so delicate in this world, it's barely perceived, and it's only perceived by people who are willing to make an effort to see Hashem in this world. That's how hidden this Hashem is in this world. But beyond that is this infinite light. And even though we intellectually cannot see this light, we're going into Aramaic. So, even though we can't intellectually understand it, if we intellectually try to understand it, through trying to understand it, Magia v'lo magia. That is, that the intellect can understand Hashem on a level of knowing that it doesn't know. That's what we're calling here, magia v'lo magia, mate v'la mate. Dahainu, masig v'lo masig, that is, that it grasps but doesn't grasp. So, you could just take the feeling your heart rate as an example. You know that there's a life force that's causing your heart to beat, but you don't know what the life force is. We're calling it Hashem. But we can't. We intellectually understand it, but we don't understand it. No scientist can explain to you what is that life force. They can describe it. They can put two cells together and create a person, but they can't do it without putting the two cells together. There's energy in the world, and energy can be produced from using using mass and other types of energy. But creating energy from nothing, I don't think that's possible, at least at this point that I know of. So there are things that beyond we don't understand that, but trying to understand them is a way of understanding them. Why can't we understand it? Because it is the thing that is beyond all of our life force. We're not able to understand everything. But we have to believe that it exists. Ikar emunah. So what he's saying is that some things you just have to believe, you just have to trust that Hashem created them. Like you could say Shabbos. Why do I have to keep Shabbos on Saturday? Why can't I keep Shabbos on Monday? It's more convenient for me. Saturday is when all the great games are, and that's when, I don't know, whatever, there's concerts and things like that. Monday, nothing's happening. I'd rather keep Shabbos on Monday. If I have to keep one day of rest, that'll be my day of rest. But Shabbos is not just a day of rest, it's a day where there's a certain light and a certain energy coming into the world. You know, the Chanukah, the first time that Chanukah was celebrated, there was a certain spiritual energy. And the next year, the rabbis at the time, they felt the same spiritual energy. And they said, this thing of Chanukah wasn't just for one day. It's going for longer. And the same thing with Shabbos. And the same thing with keeping mitzvot. And know that you can't reach this level of understanding Hashem and not understanding Hashem unless you do the mitzvot b'simcha. Mitzvot, of course, we know are the connectors that Hashem, who is the infinite light, uses to allow us to connect with Him, which is Hashem's branching out and reaching out to us. But the only way that we can grasp Hashem, and the little bit that we can, is by doing the mitzvot with joy. And you know that all of the prophets didn't receive their prophecy unless they were joyous. So Reb Shlomo Karibach, he likes to say that every prophet had a little orchestra following them around. Whenever they needed a prophecy, they would say to the orchestra, play music, it would make them happy. They would receive the prophecy. So here, you want to receive an understanding of Hashem, the only way you're going to do it is by doing the mitzvot, b'simcha, with joy. Ki al yedei simchat ha-mitzvot nishlam ha-kedusha. Because through the joy of doing the mitzvah is completed, is in a sense, unified once again the holiness. U'ma'aleh achiyut v'kedusha shebeklipot. So we learned about the broken vessels and the empty space, the vacant space that Hashem created in this world. And when Hashem wanted to create this world, hi to Carlos, that's so concealed that when holiness came into this world, it had to be hidden in darkness. That's the only way that holiness could come to this world, if it's hidden in darkness, because if it was revealed, you wouldn't have free will. But the holiness that's hidden in the darkness has to be elevated by us doing mitzvot b'simcha. So sometimes it's eating an apple, drinking water, sometimes it's helping another person, and sometimes it's going to a certain place and doing a certain thing. Sometimes it's within yourself, it's on all kinds of levels, but all of the holiness that's in the world is hidden within darkness. So when you do a mitzvah with joy, you elevate that holiness from amongst the negative energy in the world. B'vchinat achadasar samanei haktoet. And then he brings the example of the 11 types of incense that were brought as an offering in the Beit HaMikdash. in the temple when the temple stood, and one of the parts of the incense was what was it called? The one that didn't smell well. Remember? Chelbana. So there was a mixture of spices, and there was one spice that on its own smelled terrible, but when it was mixed in with other smells, smelled beautiful. And that's elevating the negative, elevating the holiness amongst the negativity in the world. Ki haklipot hem b'chinat motorot v'hem b'chinat atzvut. What is the negative energy in the world? It's the motorot, is what he is calling it. It means superficial or extra things. Like, for example, I finally trimmed my nails today. After I thought before the holiday started, like I'm in good shape, but they grew very quickly. I guess with all the water and all the washing and cooking, whatever. The nails are klipot. We don't cut our hair, but you can trim your nails during Sfirat Omer. So, what does that mean? That also means sadness. When he says there's the extra unnecessary stuff, that's also sadness. And sadness is the opposite of joy. And if a person is sad, then they're not able to be joyous, and they're not able to do the mitzvah with joy, and they're not able to see Hashem perceived in this world. And everybody knows that anybody that's had somebody or themselves that's been through something difficult, and somebody says, hey, what about seeing Hashem's hand in this terrible thing that happened to you? And they're like, no, thank you. Don't want to see it. Eventually, hopefully, you come around to seeing it. But at that point, the sadness is overwhelming, and a person is not able to see it. I watched this show called The Patriots, Patriotim, on Channel 14. It's a panel. I like to watch it whenever I have a chance to watch something. And they discuss the news of the day. And what did I want to say with that? Where was I going? Atzvut. Oh no, I lost my train of thought. Okay, what was I saying before that? Do you remember, are you? You don't remember either. Okay. And the sadness is, doesn't allow a person to be with simcha. I don't know, I'm sorry, I forgot. I did have a point that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, now I remember. Okay, thank you. I better say it before I forget it. So they constantly have parents of hostages on the show. And they, on purpose, choose people that are obviously not anti-government protesters. And here you see these people, like the show that I watched last night, since there's this whole thing with Rafiach, and is there going to be a deal, and all this, I wanted to hear what the journalists on the show had to say. And they bring in this father of a hostage, and he says, it's been 200 days since I had any contact with my son. I don't even know if my son is alive, but we have to have faith in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and we have to go forward, and we have to win this war, and we have to beat out Hamas. And you think, how does a person who's going through such sadness have the ability to speak in that way? Because in the beginning there was sadness, but then they were able to overcome it and reach some type of connection with Hashem through simcha. Even though the person is suffering, they can still connect with Hashem through simcha. V'ikara simcha hu belev. Where do we feel joy? We feel it in our heart. Right? The mind thinks, the heart feels. And then he gives a quote, Shekatuv natata simcha belibi, that I give joy in your heart. And this is galut shechina, shibchinat lev, shuhu simchatan shel Yisrael. It's so much in these words here. The Shechina is Hashem's presence in this world. And Hashem's presence in this world isn't fully elevated, because anytime anybody has any doubt in Hashem, then that in a sense is exiling the Shechina, exiling Hashem's presence in this world. What does that mean? That means if today I have 50 shekels in my pocket and I don't have any more money, and I'm worried tomorrow that I won't have any money, then I'm in a sense exiling the Shechina. But if I say, even though I don't have any more money, I only have 50 shekels in my pocket, but I know that Hashem will take care of me one way or another, you're taking the Shechina out of exile. That's really what it is. And that's what he calls here Simchatan Shel Yisrael. This is the joy that the Jewish people can bring into the world. When we have faith in Hashem, and we do it from a place of joy, we allow Hashem's presence to be elevated. And you can also just see the shift in how I described what was going on. Before, I don't have any money. Now I have faith in Hashem that Hashem will figure it out. And by the way, that was Seudat Mashiach. So yesterday we had Seudat Mashiach at Mayanot. I'm sure people had it all over the world. And but in America they're having it today, or I'm confused, I don't know. It's confusing, having second day of Chag. And what is Seudat Mashiach? The Baal Shem Tov said that there's a certain energy coming down on Shvish and Pesach, on the last day of Pesach. And Reb Shlomo, talking about Seudat Mashiach and the Baal Shem Tov, he says that one piece of matzah, if a person really had faith in Hashem, one piece of matzah could last them their whole life. So, and he said, so at Seudat Mashiach, we're eating a piece of matzah. That's the last taste that we're having at Pesach. And that's the pchina, that's the aspect of Mashiach. Because when Mashiach comes, we're going to be on the level of faith that one piece of matzah will sustain us, meaning that one little piece of matzah, we won't worry where's the next piece of matzah going to come from. We have total faith in Hashem. We know that if I have this piece of matzah right now and I eat it, more matzah will come, or more whatever will come, and there's no doubt whatsoever. He says that's only on the level of Mashiach. That's only on that high level, that when you have so little, you have so much faith in Hashem, no matter what. And that we can only achieve when Mashiach comes. I don't think a human being can achieve it in this world. Even great tzaddikim have their doubts on some level of something, whatever it is. Have their personal emunah doubts. For example, Lubavitcher Rebbe, there are Farbrengens with him, where there's one famous Farbrengen with him, where he cries out to Hashem, and he says, Hashem, we children play games like hide and seek, and now you're hiding, and we're seeking you, but we're not finding you. Hashem, you have to reveal yourself. And then this Farbrengen, you hear the Rebbe crying, the Jewish people want to find you, Hashem. You have to show us who you are, meaning bring Mashiach. And I'm sure that the Rebbe didn't lose faith in Hashem, but it's not on the level of Mashiach already being there. Right? Mashiach, in that sense, would be like, I write you a check for $10,000, but until you deposit the check and have the money in your hand, you know the money's there, but it's not actually there. You know Mashiach is coming, but we can't have the level of faith that we would have when Mashiach actually comes until he actually comes. We can be as close as we want, but we're not going to be on that level until we're actually on that level. Okay. So that's the idea of the galut, the exile of the Shekhinah, and where does it come about? It comes about through sadness. And so we have to do the mitzvot with joy. נמצא כשעושה מצווה בשמחה, אזי מעלה השכינה. When a person does a mitzvah with joy, they elevate the Shekhinah, שהיא מצווה, שהיא שמחת הלב, מבין הקליפות, which is doing the mitzvah with the joy of the heart and pulling out the holiness from the negative energy. And now he starts with the Sfirot, and he says this is Sfirat Malchut Da'asiyah. This is the attribute of Malchut, which is kingship. And of course I have my little chart here. So we have Malchut on the bottom here. It's hard to do it in the mirror. Malchut is the lowest level. Malchut in the Sfirot, we know we have Keter on top, which is, it follows also the body. That Keter is the mind, and the Kippah, for example, would be Keter. Malchut is the lowest level, and it receives the energy from all the Sfirot that are going down into it. So he says that when we do a mitzvah with joy, and we pull out the negative energy from amongst the we pull out the kedusha from amongst the klipot, the negative energy, what we're doing is we're elevating malchut, we're bringing it up. Now I had an understanding when I was learning this lesson with my chavuta, that Rabbi Nachman starts off and says, you can try to understand Hashem, but you're not going to understand Hashem. And then I realized that this lesson is a lesson about trying to understand Hashem, but not really understanding Hashem. That's my guess. I don't know, we'll see when we get to the end, wherever the end is, if he really gives us like a concise conclusion to the lesson. But I have a feeling that we're going to constantly like reach up and grasp something, but we're not going to fully grasp it, because we can't fully grasp it. Okay, so כשאדם עושה איזה מצווה, יש כוח במצווה ללך ולעורר את כל העולמות לעבודת השם יתברך. When a person does a mitzvah, it has the power to go and elevate all of the sfirot, all of these attributes above it, but also all of the worlds leading up to Hashem. Your action down here is elevating all of that below, which of course we understand. You have a fruit tree. And let's just picture this in a sense as a tree. We have all these fruits on the top, we have these fruits in the middle, we have fruits all over. But if I go and I make a cut right here in the bottom of the tree, all those fruits are going to lose their energy. But if I feed the tree and give the tree sustenance, all of those fruits are going to grow and flourish. And so when we do something down here below, we affect the worlds above. And then he goes in to start, now he's going to start talking about the sfirot. And we have like, for Aryeh's attention span, 10 minutes. We're going to finish in 10 minutes. Is that the Shem? So we get to a short story, and then it's a Yetzer Hara. I know I have the same thing. I don't want to learn, and when I'm learning, it's hard to concentrate. It's really hard to overcome it. It's there all the time for all of us. Okay. So now he's going to talk about the Sfirot, and he says here, "V'zeh b'chinat malchut shemalbish netzach hod and yesod." So you see, we have here on the bottom netzach, hod, and yesod, and we have malchut. He says what we're going to have basically is malchut coming up into these other two attributes, and what we're talking about is energy, a certain energy that is expressed in this world. Malchut is the lowest level of energy, and Malchut, I can't tell you that I fully understand this stuff. I'm piecing it together over the years as we learn it. Malchut, let's think about a king. What makes the king a king? The king on his own has nothing, right? If a king is found naked in the forest, he's just like everyone else. What makes a king powerful? That he sits on the throne, and underneath him he has all of these powerful people, and those people control those people, and those people control those people, and all those people give the king his power. That's Malchut. Malchut, in a sense, has no power of its own. It only receives, so in a sense, Malchut would be like this. Even though it's really like this, though the way that we see it, we see the king on the top, and we see all the people below him. But were all these people to abandon the king would have nothing. But when the king has all of these people following, the king has everything. And that's Malchut. That's the sphere of Malchut. And Malchut is the lowest of all the Sfirot, but it receives from all the Sfirot above it. So he says, when we do a mitzvah with joy, we cause this energy to go up to the upper worlds. And what we're doing is we're causing Malchut, which is this lowest of the Sfirot, to go into Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. And he calls this the Raglin. He calls this the feet. And you can see that we have, these in a sense would be the feet, these are the hands, and this is the head. And that's how this is being divided in this lesson. And so he's saying, when you do an action down here below, you're affecting the feet, the hands, and the brain. And that's what we're going to talk about now. That's what he's going into now. And he says, and I'm skipping because we actually learned all this before. It's hard to believe. Now he's bringing some text proofs here of what he's trying to say, that the energy goes from below and up into the feet. And then he talks about this idea of halichot ele malki bekodesh, that the feet, it's really kind of hard, it's hard to describe this, but we have doing the mitzvah with joy, going up into these energies here. These energies are now creating feet. So, we have transformers now. Transformers, even though when I was a kid there were no transformers Transformers, everybody's heard of them. We're not in Meh Sharim, probably in Meh Sharim they've heard of them as well. So all of a sudden this mass has legs. And what do the legs do? They're able to move. Meaning that a person is moving forward in their connection with Hashem by doing the mitzvah with joy. And that's where we left off 2 weeks ago. Okay? Now we're continuing. V'al yedei hitoerut hainu al yedei halicha. So now, like I said before, now we're getting into the mate v'la mate. We're getting into the magia v'lo magia, that we can understand Hashem, but we can't understand Hashem. And how are we doing it? We're doing it through the sfirot. Through this inspiration that we cause ourselves by doing the mitzvahs with joy. Hainu al yedei alicha. That is through bringing the energy into the legs of the sfirot. Shehi b'chinat alicha shel malchut. These are the terms that he's using here. He's saying we have malchut here on the bottom. You're doing the mitzvah with joy. You're causing the energy to go up to a higher level, and that's enabling it to go forward. Meaning that if we're going to break it down even more, you do a mitzvah with joy, it gives you, in a sense, spiritual legs to come closer to Hashem. You do a mitzvah without joy, you did the mitzvah. But you didn't come closer to Hashem. In a sense, you avoided being punished, but you didn't benefit yourself by actually moving forward. When you do the mitzvah with joy, here, I'll give you a simple example. Tzedakah. In the shul I go in the morning, people are coming and asking for money all the time. I have to give them a coin. I give them a coin. Don't even have to give them a coin, but I give them a coin. If I give them a coin and I look the guy in the face and I smile, or I say to myself, I only have 2 shekels, and I'm going to give this guy a shekel, especially after I go to work, and he doesn't even want to bother to work, and you can find all kinds of reasons the Yetzer Hara will tell you, well, you shouldn't be giving this person the shekel, but you say to yourself, I'm going to give this person the shekel because I have it, and it's a mitzvah, and I love Hashem, and I love His creations, and you give that coin, the same giving of the coin of the person that gave in the beginning, that just gave it, but it comes with legs. It comes with something that moves you forward, and that's, he's describing it through the Sfirot, that's Malchut coming up into the higher levels. שהיא בחינת הליכה של מלכות המעוררת את כל העולמות לעבודת השם. You create this chain reaction up into the supernal worlds, from doing a mitzvah with joy, bringing down the legs of the Sfirot, allowing that mitzvah to move you forward in your relationship with Hashem, and in a sense you're affecting all of the higher levels, because what we're going to learn is then you're going to also add to it hands, and you're going to add to it da'at, an intellectual understanding of what's going on. Because in a sense, what we're learning here is a level of da'at. We're connecting into Rabbi Nachman's da'at. He was on a very high spiritual level, and he's able to bring down spiritual feelings and intuition into words, and try to describe it in a way that we can then learn it and recreate it for ourselves, or at least connect with it in some way. So when we do this, we create this chain reaction to the supernal worlds. Nimshach bekoach ha'aliyot bracha lechol ha'olamot. We know the word bracha, when somebody says, what does it mean? Baruch atah Hashem. It means, Hashem, I'm bringing you down into this world. Bracha, we bend the knee the berech is a knee, and it means to bend, and I don't remember the word in Hebrew, la'avrich, I think it is, when you take the vine and you put it under the ground and you pull it back up. That's what we're doing when we do a bracha, when we say a bracha. When a person does a mitzvah with joy, causes his energy to go up, create the legs from the sphirot that's above it, then we're bringing this bracha, this Hashem's abundance, down into this lower world. V'inyan habracha yiridat hashefa me ha'en sof baruch hu. What are we doing when we're doing this bracha and we're doing a mitzvah with joy? We're bringing down Hashem's abundance from the infinite Ein Sof light into this world. And there's so many examples for anybody that keeps Torah and mitzvot. You keep Shabbos, the greatest light is coming down into this world on Shabbos. And how is it coming down? By you doing a mitzvah. Imagine you keep Shabbos, and all you're doing is making sure that you don't break the rules of Shabbos. So you'll have Shabbos, you'll have something, but imagine do Shabbos with joy, the highest level of joy. Every single end of the week, you're going to have a mind-blowing experience. It's going to be higher than Ne'ilah every single Shabbos. And the more joy you have, the more legs you have, the more energy you send above, the more inspired you are. And there's a chain reaction that keeps going and going and going, and that's what allows this abundance to come down into this world, doing the mitzvot through joy. And he says, we're bringing down this light, Gavoa me'akol, that's higher than everything, and kol olamot, from all of those supernal worlds, up above, down into this lowest world of darkness and depression and drugs and terrorists and craziness. You're bringing Kedusha into all of that. V'chol ha'brachot ha'ba'ot me'lamala, and all the blessings that come from above. Tzrichot lavo tchila lemida atachtona. How do they come down from above? First they have to go to the lowest of the sfirot, which is Malchut. It's always starting from above. What does this mean? It's like this crazy thing. So Hashem is creating the world. Hashem is putting a soul in our body. Hashem is making us a Jew, which is why we say in the morning, Shelo asani goy. It's not like, oh, thank God Hashem didn't make me a goy. It's saying, Hashem didn't make you a goy, so make yourself now a Jew. And how do you do it? By doing the mitzvot with joy. And then you cause this elevation to go back up from here. That it has to always start from the bottom. Even though it's created from the top, it always has to start from the bottom. It doesn't come from the top down. Think about any entrepreneur. Especially the ones that built their business on their own. Right? They worked from the bottom up. There are people, I forgot the guy's name, Steinhardt is his name? I don't know. One of these fun hedge fund managers who is one of the supporters of Birthright. Steinhardt, something like that. So I was curious, how'd the guy make his billions? So his father was wealthy, and this guy, he is a very smart guy. But he opened up a hedge fund, and he lost $100,000, $1 million. His father put $1 million in an envelope and gave it to his son and said, try again. He tried again and again. You can read it on Wikipedia. Again and again and again for like a decade. The guy failed. Finally, he got something that worked. It made like $1 billion. He gives his father back his $100 million that he lent him. And now he's got money to fail and fail and fail and fail till he gets a winner and does it again. So some people are like that. But some people, we that grew up in America, we always think about the hot dog stand. The immigrant, he came from wherever, and he opens a hot dog stand in Manhattan. Oh, Michael Steinhardt, that's it, thank you. Yael, he opens a hot dog stand in Manhattan, and he could barely afford the hot dogs. He takes them on consignment, but everybody loves his personality, and there's something special in his hot dogs. And nobody knows why, but everybody's standing in line to buy from him. So he hires his brother to open another hot dog stand. And they hire all their kids, and then they hire all the Jewish immigrants, and they're all opening hot dog stands. And before you know it, this guy, he opens Macy's because he's sick of hot dog stands. And he's so wealthy, he has a Macy's parade in Manhattan. And we're all like, wow, how did this guy do it? He did it from the inspiration from below. He did it from Malchut. He started with Malchut, this lowest level, and then he elevated it to the higher levels, but it had to start on the higher level. Like the energy is always there, but it had to begin from below. Okay. That's where we're stopping for today. And the short story, I have my podcast, and I put out a long episode before Pesach, and I had this vision that I was going to record the stories today and then edit them tomorrow. I didn't get to record the stories today. bottom line. But I did find the stories. And as I'm looking for the stories, it's very hard for me to find the stories for the podcast because every week I have to feel a connection to the story. And I literally have hundreds of stories and I just go through them like this. And then I say, that's a story I want to tell. So the story I'm going to tell this week, B'ezrat Hashem, is from the Baba Sali. Even though the Baba Sali's yard site was like 4 months ago, I couldn't wait. It's a really good story. But I came across this story. So this guy, Mr. Yehuda Grossberger, the early days of the internet. So there was some online forum, and by the way, the Lubavitcher Rebbe encouraged people to be on the internet and spread Torah. So there was this guy, Orthodox guy, I guess he just liked computers, and there was some halachic discussion group and rabbis and cantors from the full spectrum of American Judaism, or American interpretations of Judaism, were in this forum, and there was some conservative cantor from Nevada who didn't seem to care very much about halacha. And this guy would argue with him. They would argue about whether you could eat treif, whether you could marry a non-Jew, and all of these things. And at some point, it came time for the Seder, and this guy, Yehuda, he asked the conservative cantor, so what do you do for matzah for the Seder? He's like, I just find crackers. Any cracker that's close to matzah, that's what I eat. And so this guy thought, you know what, I'm going to do this guy a favor. I'm going to send him a box of like the most strict shmora matzah that I can find. And he sends him a box, and then the guy says to him, your matzah, they all came broken, and they don't taste very good. But this guy thinks every year, I'm going to send him a box of matzah. I don't want him going and eating, Ritz crackers and thinking that they're matzah. So every year he sends him a box of matzah, and at some point, the guy really appreciated it, and he would send back a bouquet of flowers. So it was clear that the conservative God forbid, conservative cantor appreciated what was being sent to him. Now this guy, the cantor and his wife, they had a daughter who, how do you know she was Jewish? First of all, she went to Berkeley, and she wanted nothing to do with Judaism. That's how she knows she's a real Jew. When I was at Rutgers, when I was in undergraduate school, and the shaliach would stand out in the street and looking for a minyan and say, you Jewish, you Jewish, you Jewish? And there'd be a guy with like a big Magen David, and he's like, are you Jewish? He's like, no, I'm a goy, leave me alone. The best was, I'm just a human. That's the ultimate Jew. The ultimate Jew is, I'm just a human. So this girl, she wasn't interested in Judaism, and she wanted nothing to do with it. And the parents were very upset, and she didn't want to keep Passover. She didn't want to keep anything. And so she didn't even come home for the holidays. And then, however it happened, she ended up here in Israel for the summer, and somebody got her into some Baal Tshuva program, probably Israelite in the Old City or Esha Torah or something like that, when Israelite was still around. And she was learning, and she decided to stay and continue learning. And she was getting close to making a decision whether she should be frum or not, whether she should be religious or not. And she told the seminary that she's going to go back home to Nevada and then for Pesach, and then she'll decide. She comes back, she comes back. She doesn't come back, she doesn't come back. So, of course, they wanted her to keep shomer, to be shomer mitzvot. And the counselor in the dorm where she was, she said, let me send you some matzahs at least. So when you get back, you have matzah. And she said, nope, Hashem wants me to have matzah, then I will have matzah. And sure enough, she comes home, and what does she see sitting on the kitchen counter? The strictest shmora matzah. And she looks at it and she says to her father, what's this? And he's like, what do you mean? Every year we have shmora matzah. So she didn't even ask the backstory. She said, that's it. Hashem sent me a sign. My crazy parents, they actually have shmora matzah. So she decided to come back, and of course, she, according to the story here, she's still living here today and has a beautiful family and works in Keruv and bringing other Jews back to Yiddishkeit. And this guy writes, many people wrote to him that he was wasting his time and money sending this conservative cantor a box of shmara matzah every year. And he felt like, well, I'm at least doing a favor for him and giving him kosher matzah to eat. But what he didn't know is that he was sending matzah to this guy's daughter, and her children, and their children, and their children, all from one little act of kindness. B'ezrat Hashem, we should be able to do that for one another, and other people do it for us. And no guitar, so we won't end with a nigun. It's not the same without the guitar. Sheshikoch for everybody for being part of the lesson. And we will continue B'ezrat Hashem next week, B'simcha. B'ezrat Hashem.